Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It's been a couple days since I've made a video. I've been uploading. Last couple days were a little bit busy, so I always record a video, usually every day in some form or another. I kind of knew that the over I guess Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning was probably going to be a little bit tough for me to do some videos. So I actually recorded some videos and just had them set, and I just kind of uploaded them. But today's the first day back to doing a regular video in the morning in a few days. Friday was pretty cool. A band that I fill in for from time to time, Will Neals, who's a local activist or celebrity musician. He has a band called the Midnight Riders, and he just put together this new organization as of a few months ago called the organization's called Rock Against Racism. And so there was a fundraiser. It was for the organization. It was their first event, and I guess they're planning on doing quite a few more events this year. And it was held on Friday at the Bayside Bowl, and there was a bunch of bands that played. The weather was not great. It snowed. It snowed quite a bit, so I think it kept some people away. But there was still a pretty good turnout. I think some cash was raised. So, and then the timing of it was kind of funky because we had to get there early, or I had to get there early because I was like helping to kind of host the whole thing, and I provided my drum set for the other bands, and there was quite a bit of music throughout the night. So I basically had my kit for everyone else to use, and we played towards the end of the night. We were like the second to last band, so I had to get there early to set stuff up, set things up, and all that kind of stuff. And it started snowing down, and it was in Portland at the Bayside Bowl, which is a really cool venue, which I had never actually been to before. I'd always heard about it, but it was my first time there. Never, I've never played a gig there, and I've never seen a show there. But really, really huge place. Like I was really impressed with the size of it, and it's a two big giant bowling alleys. There's like three bars inside. There's two different restaurants, and then you have the music venue. It's a big giant complex. But it started snowing around like 7:30, and they probably got about six inches or so down in Portland, and it stopped around 11 o'clock or so. The music went till about 12:30. Started about 7ish. So I saw it, when the show was kind of coming towards the end. I noticed it had stopped snowing, so it wasn't too bad. Getting out of there, getting out of Portland was actually pretty easy. There's big mounds of snow everywhere because the plows hadn't come out. So loading in was a little bit, loading our equipment back into the cars and stuff was a little dicey, but it wasn't that bad. So then we took off to come back to Mid Coast, which usually takes me about an hour and a half or so. And I met a friend who I rode up with who lives in Warren, which is kind of, well, it's on the way. So we were going to go back to Warren first, drop him off with his gear, and then come back. And then I was going to come back here to Northport. On the way home, around 1 o'clock or so in the morning, it started snowing like crazy, and we got about another probably 6 or 7 inches. But we ran into the storm that was working its way up to Mid Coast. The same thing, the same storm. So it was a little dicey, it was a little crazy, but it took me. The roads were really bad, so I had to take my car. My truck is really good in the snow, but I still had to try to be careful. So it took us over 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and 30 minutes to get home. So by the time I got home, it was about 4 o'clock, and then I was up till about 5. By the time I finally crashed out, so it was a pretty long day. And then Saturday, I did sleep pretty decently, but I was pretty wiped out. And then just kind of relax. But then last night we had a quantum show at Hey Sailor with my great friend Halsey, and it was super fun. So thanks again to people coming out. Had some, good little group of friends that showed up. I love playing there. We played we played first. We did our quantum set first, and then Halsey came out. But really, really great time. So the next thing coming up for gigs or with quantum is next Saturday, next weekend at about 1 o'clock, 12:45, 1 o'clock or so. We're gonna be doing a daytime set at Opera House Video, world famous Opera House Video, which is the only video shop in existence in Maine where you can go and rent movies. And we're going to be playing with AK Sonic Wallpaper, Enor, a great friend Ronnie. We all have like this cool little bond. I was talking to somebody last night about my relationship with Halsey, Eric Halsey, and Ronnie. We all played in a band together for a few years called Bone Broth. The band kind of broke up, but we became really good friends throughout that. And during that whole process, we realized, wait, we all have these like weird little side project electronic groups. So since then, since we kind of met, we've been doing these shows together, and we've kept that kind of relationship going. So which has been super awesome. So next weekend, next Saturday at around 1 o'clock or so, we'll start at Opera House Video. It's a daytime show, playing in this in store. We've done it. Played there a few times. We did two shows there before. I think we did two shows with Ronnie, but one that we did was really great. We did this thing of where we're doing like a kind of a round robin thing where we're going to be kind of playing off of each other and kind of rotating tunes or jams every 10, 15, 20 minutes instead of doing like a traditional set of he plays a set and then I play a set, or vice versa, like 45 minutes or an hour. And then we're going to try to do this interactive thing where we play off of each other and play even at times maybe together. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We had one gig over the summer where we did that as an experiment, and it was really, really fun. So that's the goal for this next gig, is that kind of thing. And we have a lot of improv that kind of comes through with playing our sets live anyway. But the majority of the material that we play as Quantum is all original music. But with this other thing that we tried over the summer at Opera House, we did play like a couple of songs, but about 90% of it was totally improvised. So, yeah, it's a cool experiment to kind of think, really makes you think a lot more outside the box, if you will. So really cool. So, anyway, today's show, I was going to go to the movies tonight, and I'm thinking about it. There's a movie I really want to see that I saw the trailer for when I saw Friday 13th Part. No, actually, what was it? Well, it was Friday 13th Part 3 in 3D. I went there last week and saw it, Black Bear Cinema, and it was amazing. What an awesome experience. But I saw the trailer for Psycho Killer. I have not read anything about it. I have just stayed away, but kind of, which is kind of touch and go. I'm kind of basing everything off of the trailer, but I was blown away by this trailer for Psycho Killer. So it's playing tonight, but in Augusta at the Regal Cinema, which is a really nice theater, and I'm thinking about going, but I guess we're supposed to get a lot of snow tonight, so I'm not sure yet. I'm trying to think. I had mentioned going to the movies with some friends, and one couldn't go because of other things, and then the other friend decided he's not going to go because of the incoming weather, which is understandable. I don't mind driving in the snow. My car is good in the snow, but it's gonna, if it's a foot of snow and driving an hour, not desired, but I don't know. We'll see. So anyway, I'm going to be talking about a movie that it's a movie I saw on the Film Crypt, which is a channel that I discovered a few weeks ago on YouTube. Super awesome. I started watching a bunch of movies on this site that were really great. And most of these movies, I have a lot of reviews up on the channel for a lot of the movies that I saw on the Film Crypt. Most of the movies were brand new brand new films for me. Time wise or year most of these films are definitely from the 70s and 80s, which is my favorite, my favorite period. But a lot of the films I had never seen before. But today's show is on a movie that I did see a bunch of times as a kid. I've always loved it. It's also a huge franchise, which I've never really, when I think about how big the franchise is, which I think they've even made, even in very recent, within the last few years, I think there was another one that came out, and that is The Children of the Corn from 1984. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I watched that movie. I watched Children of the Corn about probably about a week and a half ago. And again, I watched it on this website or YouTube channel, The Film Crypt. Quality was pretty good. And Children of the Corn was a movie that I remember seeing a lot as a kid. And and I watched it again a week and a half ago, and it's been like 1,000 years since I've seen it. I don't own it, but it was really great. I really enjoyed it. It's a pretty demented, little low budget kind of a slasher movie with like centered around this cult, obviously, of these children. But it's pretty awesome, and I was really excited. And I forgot too that it's Children of the Corn. The original story is based. Stephen King wrote it. It's based on a Stephen King short story. And I honestly, it's been so long since I've seen Children of the Corn that it was like watching it for the first time, definitely. And that happens a lot. When I was a kid, I remember I think the first time I ever saw Children of the Corn was probably on VHS, now that I think of it, because, I was a product, my childhood, I grew up in that era. I have my earliest time or recollections of seeing movies was definitely like I remember VHS was a thing, and then cable was a thing. You had HBO or home box office, Cinemax, and then I think there was one other network that showed movies. And then you had your regular cable channels, ABC, CBS, and HBO. HBO was always the one that was, the coolest one. And I think HBO is still probably the best kind of network that puts out, incredible quality TV shows and everything. They've always been ahead of, I feel like HBO has always been ahead of the time and ahead of the curve, and just, always thinking in terms of trying to be fresh and innovative when it comes to, like, especially original content. But I remember that those cable channels, HBO, Cinemax, like, and then also the local, like ABC, the regular network television shows, they would show movies a lot. And I probably saw Children of the Corn on TV first. It was probably an edited version, because it is a pretty gory movie. I mean, gory. I mean, it's not like a full on bloodbath, but I would say it's a pretty gory movie, and it was probably a censored or edited version of the film that was shown on cable. Of course, if it was on HBO, it wouldn't have been, but I remember seeing it probably on television at first, on the first time, and then getting it, renting it on VHS as a kid. And it was definitely a movie that was, I remember a lot of kids and a lot of people were into this movie. It was a real popular horror movie of the time, and it was a pretty successful movie. It was probably like the first movie and story that I became aware of as a kid that was written by Stephen King. The first, the first Stephen King book that I ever read was Pet Cemetery, and then also I saw the movie Pet Cemetery right around that time. Pet Cemetery is a masterpiece. It's probably the best Stephen King adaptation. But definitely Children of the Corn, which was a short story written by King, that was definitely the first Stephen King movie I ever saw. And there's so many. I mean, The Long Walk, which just came out last year, is another amazing film. And I definitely want to read the book. And I do like Stephen King quite a bit. There's been so many. I mean, there's been so many. Probably, in the world of horror, he's definitely the most adapted writer. I mean, so many. There's so many films based on his works. It's crazy. I think it's safe to say probably more than any other horror author that there is. But Children of the Corn was definitely the first that I had ever seen of his work, and became aware of his movies. It was also, there's always been something extra scary, I think, with horror films in general where they involve little kids. And it's always been, and it still is a taboo, in movies about, scenes or stories that involve children getting killed. But it's especially creepy, I think, when you have children that are the villains of the story, a group of children. Like that's a pretty creepy premise. And watching Children of the Corn, and again, I watched it like a week ago. I forgot like how cheesy this movie is. Like it actually is pretty bad. But ultimately, I really, really enjoyed it, and I think it is kind of the case of like where I've mentioned it many, many times. It's kind of so bad, it's kind of good. I think that's definitely the case. This movie is ultra low budget too. I forgot how low budget this film is, but it's got some really um, great direction, some really good cinematography. The cast is pretty good. It definitely is from what, because again, it had been years since I had seen it since I was a kid, but it's definitely a lot more cheesy than I remember it being. But I think it ultimately works because I definitely feel like this movie is, and it's really low budget. It's way more low budget than I remember it being too. And I would feel pretty comfortable with putting it in that kind of B movie exploitation, kind of realm because it is so cheesy at times, but it's got great atmosphere and some great kills. It's kind of a bonkers story when you think about it, but it's great. I really, really loved it. The cast was really good. I totally forgot that Linda Hamilton was in this movie from, of course, Terminator. I totally forgot that she was one of the stars in this film because it had been so long. John Franklin is also in this film. Courtney Gaines, Peter Horton, Robbie Keeger, and Anne Marie McAvoy, Jonas Mardeau or Jonas Marlowe, and John Philbin. But yeah, 1984, and this movie definitely feels like an 80s movie. It was directed by Fritz Kirsch. Fritz Kirsch, who offhand is not somebody I know of that much, but he did quite a few movies in the 80s and also the 90s. Children of the Corn, of course, came out in 84. Tough Turf in 85. The Stranger in 1995. The Hunt 2007. Gore in 87. Under the Boardwalk in 89. Into the Sun in 92. Winners Take All in 87. Fatal Charm in 1990. Yeah, pretty hilarious. I don't think I've seen any of these other movies that he's done, but a pretty prolific director for sure. Children of the Corn is definitely the only movie I've seen of Fritz Kirsch's work. Um, yeah, pretty funny. Probably the most popular actor or actress of this in this movie is definitely Linda Hamilton. I mean, she became a huge actress, huge star, most notably because of the Terminator films. Of course, Terminator, the original, which is just a masterpiece, 84, and then Terminator 2, Judgment Night or Judgment Day, that came out in 91. I'm one of the few people. Linda Hamilton's great. I mean, the Terminator franchise, I think, is kind of a shit show. I am not a big fan of. I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm really, I feel like Terminator, the first one, which I think was the first film that Linda Hamilton ever starred in. I think she's incredible in that movie, and I think it's one of the best science fiction slash horror movies ever made. I think it's arguably the best thing that James Cameron's ever done. I love how dark that movie is, and there's such a great level of suspense, and the action is just so great. It's just such a great cast. Terminator 2 was a phenomenon when that movie came out because obviously because of the groundbreaking effects that movie did have in it. But generally, I'm kind of like, and I'm about to say something I guess controversial, but I'm not a big fan of Terminator 2 as a movie. I think visually it's amazing. James Cameron's done it for many of his projects and films where he does, kind of reinvent the wheel, like especially around technology and how to, he has these ideas of that are kind of ahead of its time, and he is an innovative director without a doubt. But I just never bought the whole thing of like taking Schwarzenegger's character and making him this compassionate, caring character. And it always felt like I always thought that I never bought that. I always felt that was so disappointing with the movie. Yeah, it has a lot of other great attributes to it, but I've always felt that movie was overrated because of that. But that's just me. And then there's a slew of other, but it is good, and I do want to see it again. It's been a long time since I've seen Terminator 2, but I do feel like it's a little bit overrated. The rest of the movies in the franchise are just totally forgettable as far as I'm concerned and disposable. And I honestly think they should have just stopped making them. But it's the Terminator is such a massive franchise, and I do believe I think they're making another one. I don't know if Linda Hamilton's going to return, but it's kind of crazy. But Children of the Corn is a pretty dope movie. Uh, I would get it. I'd get it on Blu-ray. I'd get an upgrade of this film.
Powering off.
I didn't realize too that it came out Children of the Corn and the Terminator came out the same year, 1984. I never didn't realize that. I don't own I don't own any copies of Children of the Corn. I don't believe. I might have had it or still have it somewhere on VHS perhaps, but I'd have to look. But I'm not positive. I don't think that's the case. But anyway, still holds up after all of these years. It was super fun. Definitely cheesier than I remember it being, which is okay. I love the cheese. Spread the cheese all around. So, and out of all of the movies, again, discovering the film crypt was has been really cool. I haven't watched any movies on that channel in a while because I got my TV back. I got a brand new TV and I got my setup back, which has been really awesome. And I realized how much I missed it. So I was watching a ton of these movies on the film crypt, in the time being. And most of these movies, I'd say about 92%, 95% even, were all movies I had never seen before. But there was a few that I saw, like The Children of the Corn, that I saw when I was a kid. And so it was like, I've often, and it usually is always the case, whenever I watch a movie, especially on Blu-ray for the first time, it's literally like watching it for the first time. But being that I hadn't seen this movie in years and years and years, even though, and the quality was pretty good on this, for this transfer of this movie on the Film Crypt channel. So it pretty much was like watching it for the first time. So very, very cool. Definitely check it out. There are numerous sequels to it's a Children of the Corn is a huge franchise, and it would be kind of fun to see the rest of the movies at some point. I don't believe I've ever seen any of the other films in the franchise. I might have in passing, but nothing that I can remember. Children of the Corn, the original, is the only one I can remember seeing, numerous times as a kid. So, so yeah, check it out. It's a great movie, super cheesy but still awesome. Creepy atmosphere, well directed, great cast. A pretty good story created originally by Stephen King. So yeah, peace. Have a good day.